I said, guess who's back? Man, guess who's back? I said, guess who's back? What's going on, people? It's Backchat TV and I'm back with another video. So we've got an updated sighting of Errol Spence. Very rare sighting. I personally have not seen him on any social media since his unfortunate loss to Terence Crawford. This is the first time we've actually seen and heard from Errol Spence. Just before I go into the video, you've got to excuse me, my voice sounds terrible. I'm actually recovering from a extremely difficult flu. It was the worst flu I've ever had, and as you can hear, my voice is terrible. But I didn't want it to stop me from commenting on what I think about Errol Spence and Terence Crawford with the rematch, and there's a lot to talk about, really. First of all, I was excited to hear anything from Errol Spence. I thought that we would probably likely see Errol Spence talking about his rematch, you know, a concrete date on when it's happening, maybe an update on his training methods, and, you know, maybe we'd see something about him training and what's going to happen, exactly what weight it's going to be, because a few reports have said it's still going to be at 147 pounds, which would still put Errol Spence at the same disadvantage that, you know, he has been talking about beforehand. But no, to my surprise, the first sighting we had of Errol Spence was him being wheeled out of a hospital, straight out of eye surgery. He's obviously been through so much already with the car accident, and then recovering from that, and then the detached retina, then recovering from that surgery, and now he has this cataract in his eye, which was covering part of his vision. He had to get that surgically corrected as well. Now, the interesting thing about it is that he mentions that he knew about this cataract a long time ago, prior to the Terence Crawford fight. So why was he cleared to fight? Why was it that he couldn't get this sorted out first? You know, now obviously most people could say that, you know, most boxers, professional fighters, they go into fight with injuries and they just have to get on with it. It's their job. They're going to have little niggles here and there, issues here and there, but cataract covering the eye, I would have thought, is something more serious than a little niggle, and it should have taken priority because you have to have 100% vision in the ring. But obviously Errol Spence is suggesting that he was kind of either ignoring his own health or underestimating Terence Crawford. He may have been thinking that, you know, okay, it's nothing, I can still see a little bit, maybe my sight is a bit fuzzy, but it's not a big deal. And he signed for the fight and went into the ring against the pound-for-pound great, came up short, and now, in retrospect, wants to use it as an excuse. Now, some people will say, well, it's an obvious excuse. You can see he just had surgery. Yes, but it's still an excuse, you see. I mean, it's not devaluing what has happened to him, but to use it as an excuse where you already knew it was something that existed, it's kind of a grey area there, you know. But personally, I've got all the sympathy in the world for Errol Spence. Like I said, he's been through so much, just had the cataract removed, and he doesn't look in any shape at all to be talking about a rematch with Terence Crawford, to be honest. People are talking about this rematch happening quite close. And I think it's obvious that this rematch is not going to happen as quickly as they said it would. He needs a lot of recovery, and then he needs to start training. And he doesn't look like he's done any of those things yet. So that's definitely a concern. Another thing is that he often said that he wasn't going to make any excuses at all. But then he's come out with more than a few excuses. So first of all was the cataract from the eye, which I completely understand that excuse. We can see he's in the hospital, he had surgery, so that is an honest excuse, basically. Still an excuse, but he's being honest about what he's going through. But he then goes on to talk about other things on Twitter and Instagram about yes, I got my ass whooped, he said, but I haven't really been taking boxing as serious as I should have done, so that's an excuse. You know, hasn't really been taking training as serious as he should have done. Obviously, we know that being weight drained and wanting to go up to 154 pounds has always been something that Errol Spence has spoken about. But to bring it up again about the weight, and basically the excuses are adding up. Now, why is it that he is suddenly coming out with all these excuses? Now, what I personally feel is Errol Spence is a person, he's got a lot of pride. A lot of pride. These are two very prideful characters. Terence Crawford and Errol Spence, world champions, unbeaten champions. You know, they were kind of untouchable before this fight, both of them. So when someone takes a really embarrassing loss like this, it's very difficult. It's difficult. You try to rationalize it in your mind. You think about it. You see people on social media either bashing you or trying to force you to come back to the rematch, and your pride kind of, especially where you don't want to disappoint your supporters, your family. You know, they're saying, get back in there, you can beat him. And I personally feel that this is what made Errol Spence action his rematch against Terence Crawford. I don't think he actually believes he can beat Terence Crawford. I think, unfortunately, it's just life. He's been through so many things. Like I said, with the car accident and the multiple surgeries now, he knows deep down he is at a significant disadvantage against a man who hasn't had any major surgeries, hasn't had a major car accident. So I think he's had time to kind of reflect and think about all the things that happen, because when it happens in the moment, it's just your pride. Even when he actioned the rematch, that's just pride. That's all pride and that's all ego. Now he's had time to think about it. I think that's why we're seeing the excuses, because he's had to face reality and really think about what this rematch would really mean. The rematch would mean he'd have to be 100% in there. His eye would have to be 100%. His body would have to be 100% to even have a chance. And he knows this. And he is very far from 100%. He's far from 100% in training. Terence Crawford is training every day. Errol Spence hasn't stepped in the gym since this eye injury. I mean, he hasn't stepped in the gym properly. Hard training, maybe light training, but since he's been off, he's been relaxing. We've seen he hasn't done any proper training yet because of his injury. The other thing is, if he steps straight back in the ring with Terence Crawford, he's going to get hit in this eye. There's no way, even if Errol Spence was to miraculously win the fight, which I think he's almost got no chance, to be honest, because Terence Crawford is only getting better. I feel that, he is going to get hit in this eye. The eye is vulnerable, and he might end up just being totally, he might end up having a serious injury that can't be corrected. He may go blind in that eye because it's damaged. It can't take any more punches. He can't take any more punches to, even the eye socket, all these areas where there's damage, you can't take any more punches, And we saw it in the fight with Errol Spence and Kell Brook. Kell Brook said prior to his eye injury with Triple G, he said his eye was stronger than before. It's almost like he's a robot now, he said, Robocop. But when he was in there and it got tough and he got hit, the eye gave out. And that's what happens with injuries. Your injury will give out under 100% stress, and that's what he's going to get in the ring. Like I said, he has to be 100%. And I've seen, unfortunately, a lot of slippage from Errol Spence since the car accident, since the eye accident. Even if you go back to when he had the fight with Sean Porter, I could tell he wasn't in perfect condition. He didn't look that strong. He looked like he just made weight. He got in the ring, and it was a tough fight because he, like I said, there was no strength and conditioning there. I could tell. I could tell when Errol Spence is at his strongest and when he's not. And when he was in the ring with Sean Porter, he definitely wasn't at his strongest, which is the reason why Sean Porter did so well. When he had the fight with Ugas, he got through the fight, but what worried me was that he got hit with punches that Errol Spence doesn't normally get hit with. Errol Spence, people always say he hasn't got skills and he's just a basic fighter, but when he's been fighting regularly, he's got great timing. He gets out of the way of a lot of punches. He's got good defense, good distance control. He pressures well, gets out of the way of those counters, and he does that really well. He was getting hit with ridiculous shots from Ugas that he just wasn't seeing, and because he's a big, strong guy, he was able to get through that fight. But there is considerable slippage I'm seeing in Errol Spence. And if you look at Terence Crawford, that guy's just getting better. Even though he's older now, he's in amazing shape. And I don't see there being any difference in a rematch. Now, Errol Spence, for me, he's given me kind of mixed signals. Because initially, when he actioned his rematch, after that, he never really said much. There wasn't much from his team, and there wasn't much from him. And this is the actions or the attitude of a man who doesn't really want the fight. He probably just did it out of ego. Like I said, it's like if you're fighting someone who you think you should beat and you get dropped, you get up quickly, like, oh, that was nothing, It's that type of thing. I think it's just a reaction to say, let's do it again. That wasn't right, let's do it again. I think now that he's had time to think about it, like I said before, he's thinking about it in realistic terms. He's now looking at his family. He's now looking at the fact that he's lucky to not have lost his vision. He's looking at his partner, he's looking at his mother, and now he's thinking about what it really means if he goes back in there with a man like Terence Crawford, who's not going to lose. You have to beat Terence Crawford. He's not going to just lose. He's not going to give up like some of these other fighters, and he knows this. So reality is hitting him now. I think he's got two options. I think either he retires, or we're going to see him say that because of what he's gone through, he's going to have some tune-up fights first. So he's going to push the Terence Crawford fight further down the line, and he's going to fight a couple of other guys first. And then I think what will happen is one of these other guys that he fights will give him a tough fight, but he'll win because Errol Spence is a supreme athlete. And I think he'll retire. I think he'll say, although I won, I didn't feel great. The eye was just not giving me great confidence, and I think it's time I think about my family. And I can see this happening. And the reason why I think he'd do it that way is everyone wants to go out on a win. No one wants to go out on a terrible, devastating arse beating like what he got. No one wants to do that because it looks as if you gave up and you quit. Errol Spence is not a quitter. So there's a lot of things going on here. Errol Spence wants to get back in the ring with someone else before he fights Terence Crawford. That's what I think. I think he's using what happened to him, as an excuse for why he needs a tune-up, because he's been out of it for a long time. He'll get a few fights with a few guys because they'll be queuing up because they can see that he's got so many injuries, but they'll misunderstand that Terence Crawford, Errol Spence, is still a dog, and he'll beat some of these guys that will foolishly take the fight with him. I think a lot of these guys will do better than people thought because he is kind of like a wounded animal at the moment. But I think he's good enough to beat some of the competition around. And then I think he'll retire. I don't think it will give him confidence to fight Terence Crawford. I think he just wants to go out in the right way, kind of on his own terms. That's what I feel he'll do. Personally, I feel like he should retire now. But I'm not obviously in his corner. If I was giving him advice, I think he should retire now. But obviously, like I said, if I was in his shoes and I was the kind of person that Errol Spence is, I'd probably take the same route that I suspect he's trying to take. Take some tune-up fights due to the injury, win those fights, and then retire. Because then you can you could have a great performance, and then you could say, look, I think I'm good enough to fight Terence Crawford, but I have to put my family first. I didn't feel great in this fight. The eye did still give me trouble, and I've got to put my family first, and then it would look more gracious. Do you know what I mean? And I think that could backfire because he could get in the ring with somebody and they could cause him to go blind. Even if he wins the fight, he could take a shot on that eye and that's it. So he's got to be very careful about his next moves. He looks like a wounded animal at the moment. Obviously, he could make a full recovery and go back into a rematch and do very well, much better than he did in the first fight. But I just don't see it happening. He's not training. He's got the severe injury. He has some residual damage from the car accident. He doesn't look like the same person at the moment. And, You know, for me, I don't see him being able to rival someone like Terence Crawford at the moment. Now, even Terence Crawford has an expiry date. He's getting older. He doesn't want to take any more fights that are not big fights. He's looking for Canelo or any other kind of big fight. Canelo's the only one out there. So he's looking to retire soon as well. You know, but I don't know. Let me know what you think about all this stuff with the eye injury. Do you think it's an excuse? Is it a valid excuse? Just because it's something that is real, we can see that he clearly had surgery. Does that give him the right to use this excuse? Especially because he knew prior to the fight that he had this injury. I'm interested to know your thoughts. Leave comments, likes, subscribe, all of that stuff. I do get back to comments. I am actually quite interested in hearing your comments on this because I'm not sure. This is my take on it. I feel like he is trying to retire, but it's kind of got too much pride that he can't say that I don't really want to fight Terence Crawford again because of the risk. Am I reaching? What do you think about this? I'm on to the next one. I said, guess who's back? Man, guess who's back? I said, guess who's back?